ending apartheid in South Africa, putting pressure on the tobacco industry. In the 1990s, big pension funds took a stand. And after the massacre in Newtown, some want to do the same with gun violence. You think this is as big as apartheid companies and pressure on companies not to deal with South Africa, and as big as divesting out of tobacco companies?
I think it will be just as big, and I think it will be just as big because people feel this is a threat to their lives now, a threat to their children.
In Philadelphia, Mayor Michael Nutter released a set of Sandy Hook principles for gun makers and retailers like Walmart if they want to get pension investment money. In Chicago, Mayor Rahm Emanuel is urging TD Bank and Bank of America to cut their lines of credit to gun companies. In New York, the city's public advocate is pressuring 12 big fund managers to dump their investments in gun stocks.
We're telling them you have to get out of these investments and you have to do it now. Look, this is a break point in American history.
One of the funds, Tiger Global, says it has no position in any gun company and has no intention of owning one. Another fund, Cerberus Capital Management, said it will sell Freedom Group, the maker of the Bushmaster rifle used in the Newtown shooting. In the days following that massacre, California public school teachers learned their pension fund invested in Freedom Group.
I was devastated when we realized that we had this investment in our portfolio.
This month, the teacher fund announced it would dump any gun and ammunition holdings that are illegal in California. The NRA says all of these efforts are, quote, trying to drive a stake through the heart of the Second Amendment by bankrupting gun companies. But will any of this public pressure matter?
What has happened since the Newtown shooting is that gun sales have absolutely exploded. These firearm stocks are probably going to see record sales and earnings over the next few quarters.
Rich profit margins, huge sales. Shares of Smith & Wesson are up 8% in the past month. Sturm Ruger up 17%. But pension funds are big investors, and analysts concede if the pressure continues, it could cap share prices. So pressure on share prices, yet, but a threat to their business? Probably not. The analyst we talked to says the publicly traded gun companies are rolling in so much cash with profit margins in excess of 20%. They don't really require capital from outside investors to stay in business. Joining me to talk more about guns and the business of firearms is Richard Feldman. He is president of the Independent Firearm Owners Association and a former NRA lobbyist. And just this idea that the public pension funds want to put pressure on gun manufacturers a la apartheid and smoking. Do you think they have any chance?
Well, I can't tell anyone what to do with their own money, but when you see the mayors acting as economic terrorists, saying that you shouldn't invest in lawful companies, the outcome is going to be insignificant. If the banks were to fall for this kind of economic terrorism, who can play that game?
Why do you think that Rahm Emanuel and Mayor Nutter, why do you think they're economic terrorists?
Well, by saying they're not going to allow pension funds or monies invested in banks that loan money to legitimate businesses here in the United States, two can play that game. There's far more money in those banks owned by gun owners in this country than controlled by the mayors. I would be very careful if I were those banks in thinking if you're going to fall for that kind of a threat, because many people can play that game.
They do think that this, and many of these mayors and many of these pension fund managers and people who are, you know, the responsibility is managing the money for retirees, public sector retirees. You know, they say that they think there's going to be more pressure on the gun companies' bottom line. There at least is going to be regulatory pressure on the companies. And even as an investment point of view, put aside the moral question, as an investment point of view, get out of that, get out of the way. You don't agree?
Well, if you're investing to make money, doesn't take much to see what's going on in the firearm industry at the moment. If the rest of our economy was like firearms, we wouldn't be worried about a debt.
Let's talk about the president's push for stricter gun laws. It's facing an uncertain future in Congress, I guess. Take a listen to what he told Univision.
My suspicion is we're seeing more bipartisan discussion on the immigration issue than on the gun issue.
So it's not clear that legislation can pass, but you pointed out the gun companies are making a ton of money, and you're seeing a run on the guns in stores. What's driving it?
American consumers are putting their money where they're ultimately going to be voting. They're in favor of guns. Look at the favorability of the National Rifle Association. it's in the 50s. The Congress is around 10%. I know which way I'd rather be.
Let me tell you this, something that can really hurt gun companies would be lawsuits, right? If you're a company and you have a product and that product hurts someone, usually you get sued over it. But this industry is protected by law for most liability claims. What should the gun industry, why does it have this special kind of immunity that virtually no other industry gets? I mean, you are a lobbyist for the industry, so you know better than anybody. Why is the product of a gun maker protected when other products aren't?
Guns are capable of great lethality. That is their utility. When they're in the hands of law enforcement or a civilian protecting themselves, we all applaud it. When those guns are in the hands of a criminal or a deranged individual, it's a horrible tragedy. But if the gun manufacturers make a product that is supposed to operate correctly, when it operates correctly in the good guy's hands, that's great. When it's in the wrong hands, it's horrible. Our focus in this country must be to zero in whose hands are the guns.
All right, I know you've spoken a lot about that. You've actually been at the table with the Vice President and others on this debate. And we'll talk to you again very, very soon. Richard Feldman, President of the Independent Firearm Owners Association. Thank you, sir. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Up next...